All right, and then I'm gonna get this presentation going again. Okay, I assume you're just seeing the one slide. So let's go ahead and get started. My name is Dan Warner. I'm with the Planning and Development Department. This meeting is for D3 zoning. To talk about that, this is for what is known in our downtown plan as the River South District. There are other D3 properties, but we're going to go to them separately. We just wanted to start with this neighborhood first with these meetings. So let's just go ahead and get started. There's a slide at the end for questions. We can do it that way. If you feel like you want to interrupt me and get a little more explanation about something, that's fine too. It's a relatively short presentation, but plenty of time for questions. So first, a little background. So the D mixed use zoning districts, which are D1, D2, and D3, were created in 2006. The city went through a development code update that ultimately didn't get adopted, but these districts were created. They've only been partially implemented to date. Right around 2017, the city replaced the old C5 zoning district with D1, and that's really in the core of the Kansas Avenue area, was rezoned to D1. And also we've approved a downtown master plan update this current year. Let's talk about the downtown master plan real quick. So the plan is meant to set the stage for the next generation of downtown development. There's been a fair bit of development in the past few years, especially kind of in the core of downtown. So this plan represents the next chapter. And what we're trying to do is really answer where does downtown go next? So through that process, we created a series of districts within downtown, and these really are complementary districts. They're not meant to be competing. Each one of these districts has its own sort of brand, so to speak, and very different things going on within each district. Kansas Avenue is the spine for downtown. It's the spine that links all these districts together. We have activity hubs along Kansas Avenue that are at 5-minute walks. That's the stars on that map. And really some of those are existing today, like the downtown plaza, which is the de facto center of downtown now at 7th and Kansas. So you can see the Kansas Avenue links these districts together. More specifically for River South, the brand that was developed for River South is an innovation district. Some of the key elements here are to reclaim the riverfront land. So all of that land is currently publicly owned. There's a mix, and this is a key point here, there's a mix of old, or what better word might be, existing buildings, and also new buildings. There will be new Polk Quincy viaduct access for this area when that project is completed. This district's really the convergence of all the districts and corridors. So most of the new construction here is targeted for those lands along the river. So turning that land into a more productive or better use for this area and for downtown. An interesting note about the Polk Quincy Viaduct project is that Van Buren will be open under that viaduct. So you'll have an uninterrupted path from the river to the Capitol, which currently does not exist today along Van Buren. Okay, so let's talk about zoning now. So the neighborhood is primarily zoned I2 industrial. We do have some D3 within the neighborhood currently. So most of that mill block, that block along Kansas Avenue north of First Street, is zoned D3, and some other property as well. Oops. So a little primer on the D district. So D1 is it's a mixed use district meant to facilitate sort of an active mixed use center within the core downtown. So again, this core area around, Kansas Avenue where that dense development is today. D2 is a mixed use district meant for new urban residential neighborhoods. So kind of recapturing some of the neighborhoods that used to be downtown, where now we have essentially parking lots and vacant lots. And then D3 is the industrial mixed use district. So it's what we're talking about today. So the purpose of the district is essentially to have a mix of uses, higher density housing, commercial office, light industrial uses that really emphasize the relationship between downtown and the Kansas River. So that is the essence of the mixed use district. Okay, so as we started this project, we felt it was necessary to evaluate the D3 district for its industrial character. And so the title of the slide here is Use Matrix Calibration. I'll step back a little bit and talk about the use matrix. So all of our uses that are permitted in the city are organized in a spreadsheet, and within that spreadsheet, we also have all of our zoning districts. So you can see, warehousing use, for instance, and see across the line there where it's permitted in what zoning district. So I'll show the industrial use matrix in a few slides later, but I think it's important to point out some things here that will probably get lost on that matrix. So again, we were trying to calibrate D3 to be more industrial in nature. So some of the uses that we added are listed here. So, and this will be our proposal going forward. So warehousing, storage, and distribution facilities will be permitted in D3. And kind of based on our review of the uses in the district, this use is fairly prevalent in the area. One thing to note, that accessory storage, so if you've got a retail business or an office that has storage associated with it or warehousing, that's an accessory use that would be permitted anyway. So this is really those standalone warehousing, storage, distribution type uses. We also added manufacturing processing type 2. So type 1, manufacturing processing type 1 is also permitted. So type 2 includes such things as fabrication of metal products, glass and clay products manufacturing. Type 1 would include food manufacturing, millwork, furniture manufacturing, those sorts of things. So it's kind of it's a catch-all district there, a catch-all use for different types of manufacturing uses. We also added research, lab, testing, or development laboratory. That particular use would fit well with the district. And then another use added, another sort of light industrial uses, machinery, equipment, repair, and restoration. There are other D3 uses that are within the matrix as well. So some things to point out here: building construction, mechanical contractor office is a use in the district, so that is permitted in D3. Artisan manufacturing, which is more of a sort of a light type of manufacturing, is permitted. And then self-storage type 2 or type 1, I'm sorry, which is storage within within a building, wholly within a building, and that is a use also within the district. There are other uses. So the uses that kind of make this a mixed use district would be the residential uses. So multiple family is permitted in D3, and this is really the dense type of multifamily, not the duplex, triplex, those sorts of things. 5 units or greater type of development. Then also dwelling units above ground floor. So some of these buildings, especially in the mill block, have their zone D3. Currently, they have dwelling units on the second floor. And then other uses, again, permitted restaurants, retail type uses, and office. Those are uses that are permitted in the I2 district, but also come along with D3 as well. So the next couple slides are the use matrix. I'll pause for a little bit on this and hopefully you can see that fairly well. So to explain what's going on here, so this is the industrial use matrix, a couple pages here. So all the uses are listed on the left-hand side, and then the zoning districts are across the top. So I've highlighted D3 on the right-hand side there in that red box. So if there's a dash, that means the use is not permitted. There's a dot, it means the use is permitted. There's an S, means the use is permitted, but there's standards that go along with that. If it's a C, it's a conditional use permit, which is a public process to get that use. And then if there's an SC, that means there's standards and or possibly a conditional use permit. So I'll pause here for a minute or so to give you a chance to look at this matrix, this page of the matrix.
Hey, Dan.
Sure.
This is Andy. What'd you say the dot was? Sorry, you went through all those.
No problem, Andy. The dot, that thicker dot there, that is permitted.
Okay.
The dash is not permitted.
It's not? Okay. So like, I know there's obviously other plans for it, but there obviously be transition periods. And so like, would Metro fall under machinery and equipment repair and restoration with its shop? Or I'm just trying to figure out personally, like where we might fit in this matrix, or is there maybe some other sort of government catch-all?
So on the next page, there's a dot for bus. I forget what it is, but also
okay, so it's a little more specific.
A little more, but also, types of auto type repair are possibly how you fit also, which isn't covered in the industrial matrix.
All right, thank you.
Okay, let's go to the next page. Okay, if we look at warehouse, storage, and distribution, which is a second use from the bottom, there's an SC on that. So that means there are special use standards. So there's a couple special use standards to point out as well. So the first one being, so contractor yards, so outside storage. Any new uses, so this is new uses, would require screening if adjacent to residential or mixed use zoning districts. So screening such as, privacy fences, those sorts of things. And again, that is for new uses. And then similarly, warehouse, storage, and distribution, we're including that as a permitted use, but there are standards. And essentially that use is permitted within existing buildings. All items have to be stored in that building, and then some limitations on the amount of garage doors facing the public street. So it's possible that somebody can't meet those standards, then that's where a CUP would come into play. But again, this is for new uses. Quick note about design. So within the I2 district, there currently are design standards that apply to new construction or significant alterations. So we'll be transitioning away from those particular standards to the updated downtown Topeka urban design standards. And those are more context-based, take into consideration, they better take into consideration the existing character of an area rather than sort of the one-size-fits-all type approach that's currently part of I-2, or currently part of the design review for I-2. And then, so a final note about process. So we have neighborhood information meetings. This is one of those. Once we finish with those meetings with the various property owners, that's when we'll more officially start the process, and we'll send legal notice to all property owners affected. There'll be a public hearing at the Planning Commission. This is, I think, likely trending towards the October meeting. And then ultimately the governing body has to approve these types of changes. So with that, be happy to answer any questions, concerns, comments. If you want to share, that'd be great.
So Dan, you mentioned the design guidelines for the new district type. I think maybe I'd seen them, or something that I thought was what they were talking about in relation to the downtown plan. Does that mean in terms of the facade, if a person like Metro was to revise or renovate our building, that it would be, the general idea would be it should look similar to what's shown in those design guidelines in terms of kind of a multi-story building with a kind of older facade to it, or is that what you're talking about?
No, not really.
Okay.
So if you're remodeling a facade, you know, for instance, you've got I think it's a brick building, is that right? One story kind of brick building.
Yeah.
Those are the cues we would use, you know, the brick, the materials, the form, that kind of thing. So we're not,
More
it's,
material based and less design aesthetic.
yeah, we're right. The aesthetic is not really what we're shooting for here. It's more the materials, the massing, the scale, where the parking goes, that sort of thing.
Okay, thank you.
Dan, it looked like Michelle had posted a comment in the chat.
Oh, thank you. Yes, so Michelle asked about sending out a copy of those sheets. Yes, we can do that. It's possible that we, you know, might make some tweaks along the way, but we'll make sure if that happens that we always get updated information out. I think there was a question probably a while back, and I think it might have come from Michelle regarding tax rebates and zoning. So if somebody has a, let's say a neighborhood revitalization plan, like the tax rebate, the zoning doesn't affect that. There's no link between the zoning of the property and that tax rebate. The tax rebate is about, you know, the physical improvements that are on that property, not really the zoning. So zoning will not affect the rebates, or vice versa. We can rezone properties that have rebates currently.
Okay. Dan?
Yes.
Why on the zoning plan does it show the old Adams building still staying as I-1, I-2, and the rest of us are all rezoned?
Good question, Michelle. So we have looked at that again, and especially based on some of the tweaks we've done to D3, we will be proposing those buildings for D3 as well.
Okay, we are definitely heavy industrial. So how is D3 going to work for us?
So as far as sort of nonconformities, or
Yeah, I don't want to get into trouble, but all of a sudden it's changing and we did not initiate it.
Sure. So as we've made changes to the D3 or proposing changes to the D3, so we've added those couple major uses, that warehousing and that manufacturing type 2 use. We don't really believe there's too many nonconformities left in the district with the existing businesses today. So in your case, your use is not the issue. It's going to be if you decide to put in a new, like a new contractor yard, new outside storage, like something new, not what you have now, that would require screening. But the use of your property, that's not affected by the zoning change.
One thing that's always bothered me, how can you, I always thought that if a zoning changed, it had to be initiated by the owner.
That's not the only way. So the governing body or planning commission can also initiate zoning changes, which would be this case.
Without the owner wanting to change it?
We would, yes, yeah, that's how that can work. We obviously would go through the process like we're doing now. And if the owner, wants to protest that or make comments to that effect, that's all part of the public process.
Any other questions?
And I should specify, this is an area-wide rezoning. So there's, the multiple properties that are, and many different properties around downtown.
So this is Mike with, I have property down in this area. And since the owners have not requested this, and this is a down zoning, typically legislation across the United States has been that there would be compensation to the landowners. Is that being considered in this?
No. And that's not the case in Kansas either, I don't believe.
Well, I would disagree, but others will determine that.
Dan, I think you may need to consider doing more outreach with the neighbors, because you can tell not many showed up, and I know several that don't. Well, did you ever get the postcard?
Yes.
They don't have access or won't go on Zoom. And so you're getting a very small group of us that are talking about this. So I really think you're going to need to do more for the neighbors to get them to show up, get them to discuss this.
Yes, that's been the plan. I think I communicated that to you, Michelle, after we decided to switch this to Zoom. We would kind of monitor the turnout and decide then if we wanted to do some more meetings or more outreach. Yeah, we will definitely look into that.
Sure, go ahead and ask.
What's his name? Dan?
Dan.
Dan.
Yes.
Dan, my name is Melissa, and my husband and I own Central States Machining, which is on the corner of First and Van Buren. I'm kind of, we're all kind of for it. I mean, as owners, we've been there 25 years, and you show these pictures of Van Buren Street going all the way through, and all these trees planted, and here's my building. How do you expect me to operate with 8 to 10 foot from my building to a road with all these trees planted with your beautification project and still be able to operate? It's like nobody has reached out to us at all. And I'm totally 100% with Michelle. You guys need to have business owners, property owners in front of you to discuss this. You're talking about changing our lives.
Right, so we do intend to try to have some more outreach. Are you concerned about the use of your property and the zoning change?
Yeah,
Or is it,
this has all been zoned heavy industrial, not light. I mean, we have steel trucks, forklifts, heavy equipment coming, going, that, you know, that we work on. And I have one access to the front of my building, and it faces First Street. And I have no other choice but to operate from inside, from the front of my building. There's no putting up a fence to make it look pretty.
so the zoning change doesn't force anybody to do anything. And from the sound of your use, it seems like that fits under manufacturing type 2. So I don't know that the use is the change of zoning will affect the use. And if you're not proposing to do anything new, as far as like outside storage or something along those lines, then there's no change there either.
Dan, I'm the person who has the most outside storage of anyone in the neighborhood.
Right.
And I'm the one that's most concerned about that. And I don't want something, all of a sudden somebody coming back and saying, but you don't have it screened, you don't have it fenced. I don't want any backlash from this. So I don't know quite how to take the new zoning.
I understand. You know, as we note in staff reports about potential nonconformities, we can try to make it as clear as possible that, you know, what uses exist to date and that they're grandfathered, and try to make it as clear as we can sort of in that written record. So future people, when they're researching, are going to run into that and understand what's going on.
Well, that's what I'm worried about. Somebody decides to come in and redevelop one area and they don't like what I do, that they'll come to try and get me under non-conforming use and force me into something that costs a lot of money that I don't want to spend the money on.
Also inhibits our ability to use our ground because we have to come in from multiple accesses. You can't just fence it.
Yeah, we have a unique situation where we have multiple types of vehicles coming into the property, and they come in from multiple locations, that whole, well, a good chunk of the west side. To bring a truck in, a semi truck, has to be brought in at an angle and exit an angle. So it's not as if I can fence that easily without having a, 30-40 foot opening, which isn't practical in any way, shape, or means. So I'm just trying to avoid future problems.
Sure, I understand. So the existing use that's in place at the time of rezoning, that does not have to come into compliance. So it's, if you're, you know, you acquire a property across the street and decide to put storage over there, that's when the, you know, the use, you know, the requirements will kick in.
So what happens if I sell my business to somebody?
The zoning rights run with the land, not with property owners.
So if they come in, buy it, and they use it just like I'm using it, they're okay.
Yes.
This is a small group of people, and there's not many changes down here. In fact, I can't even remember the last ownership change was when Torgerson bought a property over on Harrison. and they started using it for storage. That was
Many years ago.
10 plus years ago. So not much unless you count everything over on Kansas Avenue. That stuff has changed, but really the rest of us haven't changed hardly at all in eons.
SciTech is somewhat new.
And I'm assuming that no one over, that you contacted those over where the viaduct is going to be, because none of them showed up that I know of.
So we have not done that yet. That's sort of a different meeting or different notice. They're in a little bit of a different situation. So we will do that, but not as part of this particular meeting.
Well, if they say we're grandfathered in, then that's true, then we should be covered as long as that is actually holding up.
Dan?
Yes.
Yeah, this is Bill. Finder. For those who don't know me, I'm with Planning and Development. I'm the director. I will, this is really good conversation, and we haven't really talked, but it seems like any chance that we can, that staff can make to meet even one-on-one with individuals who have questions, we need to be making that effort, and we may need to get your help, Michelle, in doing that, and others. But I just want to offer that we can do that. It is, we've been trying to navigate these uncertain meeting protocol times, but certainly anybody, and I think that's what Dan was kind of referencing, anybody who wants to get in front of this more with us, that's what we can do. So just because we're meeting, this isn't the only chance that we'll have to go over this and get people better acquainted and us better acquainted with the issues. So thank you.
Yeah, that's a great point. We definitely are willing to do that. In person, phone call, whatever. We really want to get to the heart of the matter, which is the change in zoning and the implications on existing uses. There was one question that came in also about the downtown BID. There was some thought that because the zoning would change, because the zoning's changing, that the BID would automatically go in place, and that we've checked different sources and do not believe that is the case. The downtown, the BID, Downtown Business Improvement District.
Dan,
Yes.
as part of this, I think you should come down and actually see the properties close up. Because I'm not sure that you guys understand totally what we do, what Central States does. Lindy Spring may be okay, but you should probably see them. I don't know about anybody else, but
Yeah, that's fine. We can do that if property owners are willing to do that. That's fine. Like I said, we've looked into it between what the county has on file and what we saw with our own eyes, and kind of made some determinations about conformance to the D3. So yeah, we can certainly dig a little deeper if you want to.
Have y'all been down here walking this area, or are you just going off what the county says and what's on your maps?
No, we went down there. I don't think we walked. We drove around and and tried to discern what was happening based on what the county had and what we saw. It's a pretty typical process we do. Because we know the county doesn't necessarily have it right either.
This is Mike again. My biggest concern is I bought a property that was I2. Now it's going to potentially D3. It's worth more as I2 than it is D3. That's my biggest concern. It's not fair.
So what are some potential uses that you think that you're trying to fit in there? Does it not fit what I described as part of the D3, the retail, the manufacturing, the storage?
I could sell my property as an I2 for potentially more money than I could a D3 is my concern.
Okay.
The difference is what can I do? The differences are between I2 and D3.
Mike, this is Mike Wilson. I'm curious what information you have that makes you believe the I2 is more valuable in that location than a D3.
Because there's more uses on an I2. I fit within it right now, but what if I want to do something different?
Well, as a potential developer, Mike, I see your property as being a prime property to have a higher and more dense use that would be allowed in a D3 and not in an I2. I think you have a lot of potential where you're at. And I know that's where you're at. And of course, I've been to your facility, but to put another I2 use on there other than what you have, I think there's a lot more opportunities elsewhere in the community that would likely be more affordable than what you've got. But you're on a corner that is really a marquee corner in my judgment, and that the D3 would actually be a benefit for you.
Well, I need to do a little more research, but I got notice 4 days ago on this meeting. So the next meeting, I need a little more notice than that. I had to move meetings around just to attend this. So that's another issue.
Oh, I'd be happy as a non-public employee to visit with you about it. You know, I've got the architectural history and developer history, and as a community or professional colleague, I'd visit with you about it just to see if I could address your concerns to some degree. And I don't recognize everyone on this call, but I'd be happy to do that with anyone. Just for those of you who don't know me, we have the Kansas Avenue Lofts at First in Kansas and a few other properties in town. But we needed the D3 to do what we are doing in that location, and the entire block, what they call the old mill block there, the west side of Kansas facing the bridge, that entire block is a D3. And I just got in on this call late, but Dan might have already mentioned that, but anyway, it's to me beneficial, and it's helped that entire block get improved. So that's all. And I recognize that there's other concerns here that have probably been expressed already that I didn't be a part of. But anyway, I'd be happy to visit with anyone about my experience and my take on the D3 and the opportunities affiliated with it.
Okay, well, let's see, we're at about 10:45. If there's any final questions, but I will mention, so I think Bryson communicated with all you for the Zoom link. So if you want to set up a specific meeting with staff, please let Bryson know, or me if you want. Either way, it's fine. We will definitely try to have another meeting and definitely encourage you to meet with us individually as well. And Michelle, if you want to organize where staff comes out and takes a look at some properties, some uses, we can certainly try to accommodate that. So any final questions?
Dan,
Yes.
this is Andy again. On your matrix, I think you used the word bus terminal, and I think I would kind of consider like our Quincy Street station more of a terminal
Sure.
than that facility. So it might be another word that might be more better description, just so that there's not confusion on. I mean, there's no actual bus stop at the site, so.
Right. So I think, yeah, I think we can qualify your facility through another use, but we'll look at that more closely and definitely give you a little more solid feedback.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thanks.
Dan, I believe there's been 2 more comments in the chat,
Thank
just so
you.
you know.
Yeah, I'm not seeing those very well. Okay, question about the case materials. Yeah, so those documents are public, a good week and a half, week or so before the meeting. So yeah, any case materials will definitely be available before the meeting. And then question about the presentation. Yes, I can forward that to people. Bryson has everybody's emails, so. Okay, well, with that then, I think we'll stop this meeting. And again, any questions, further meetings, that sort of thing, let us know and we'll definitely get to work on that. So thank you, everyone, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Thank you.
Thank you.